Hi there, my name is Cynthia Wakio, and today we're discussing on how to lead change in the workplace. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Cynthia.
So, what are the top skills required for leading change?
Well, before I address that question, let's look at what changes. And whenever we are talking about change, there are two ways to look at it. So, change can be planned in the sense that think about an organization. So, for example, here where we work, we could be talking about revenue. We want to change our performance from where we are to a better performance. So, if it's in terms of numbers, we could be saying we want to move from 10 million revenue to 20 million. So that's planned change. So we could even talk about we want to change an office. So for example, today we're in Westlands. We could say next week we want to go to Upper Hill. So when it comes to planned change, it's easy. Even in our career or personal life, think about it. Next year, you could say, well, I want to move from this estate to another estate. And the beauty with planned change is you can be able to put measures in place to be able to achieve that goal. And so it's not as disruptive. However, this is the unplanned change. So think about the things that change the status quo and in an unexpected manner. So a good example is what happened with COVID. So we all had plans for 2020, but come March of 2020, I mean, our lives were disrupted. So people lost jobs, the way we work changed, companies lost revenue, and even now, as of today, we are still we are yet to even fully recover from that. Think of also what have happened at the beginning of this year, the war in Ukraine and Russia. Again, that was something that was unforeseen, and this also has had a big impact in our lives, business and even personal lives. Yeah, so change is something that has to be handled very well. And now coming back to the organization, the top skills that a leader needs they include number one, communication, because the reason why change becomes very difficult, especially when it's unplanned, is where there's lack of communication. Yeah. Number two, emotional intelligence is also a key skill. Why? Because the very nature of change is that it's upsetting. So if you don't have, as a reader, if you don't have your life or approach, I don't know what's the best word to use in there, but if you don't have everything together,
Yeah.
so you can imagine how, and people are looking up to you for a sense of direction. So if you're not emotionally aware, to be able to understand, number one, what is your emotional state? How do you handle it? And then only then can you be able to provide proper leadership to the team. So that's a second skill I feel which is important. Another skill by itself is even change management. To realize that change is an event, it's not an event, it's a process. So the other day I was training people on leadership and we talked about the 5 stages of grief. And they'd say the first stage is acceptance, all the way there's also depression, all the time, all the way until someone recovers and now they're able to appreciate, okay, COVID is here with us, this is how we do. Or we've lost this major client and how do we survive? Yeah. So change management, it's a skill by itself. Yeah. Then we have emotional intelligence, then we have communication and influencing skills as some of the top skills that you need to have. Yeah.
So, how can then a leader bring change?
I think I've mentioned some of the things that a leader needs to consider, but I believe number one is to come up with a plan. Regardless of how bad things are, you need to come up with a plan. And coming up a plan entails you sitting down and reflecting and getting to understand where am I and how do I get myself and even the organization out of where we are. So let's say, like, I'll give the example. Let's say COVID has happened and your business has been affected in a big way. Now you have two options. You can react in a very emotional way and say, okay, this is the worst, and you go around. And some companies did that. People are fired on a short notice, and there was a lot of push and pull because the employees failed. You didn't consider as the employers failed. Well, there's no business. What do you want me to do? So those conversations, I feel they came in between. I think both parties were a bit emotional, but if both parties sat and they were able to reflect and say, "This is what we have. How do we deal with this situation?" So if our revenue is down by 40, by 60, 80%, how do we survive? So are you willing to take a pay cut? Because if this is what we have now, 40%, how can we share it uh, with everyone? Yeah. So number one is to plan, and you're able to come up with a better plan if you reflect and you remove the emotions out of it. And then with a plan, then the next step is how do you communicate? So you're communicating not because you want to make people happy, but it's the reality now to show people that this is the reality. Now, the reality is that people will not be happy with what you're telling them, but then at the end of the day, they'll appreciate. At least they know the actual situation, as opposed to you carrying out a decision on your own and they don't know where you're coming from. Yeah. And then after you communicate and be open, get to understand, people will react in their own way because you're not in charge of how people react. If I come and tell you now the revenue has shrunk and I can't afford to pay you how much I was paying you Cindy, I can only be able to do this. And this is the fact, you know? It's up to you. If you feel you want to resign because of that, there's not much I can do. But for me, I've done my responsibility. I've informed you of what is there, the reality. Yeah. But then let's not forget the third step, which is now support, because people change is not easy. So whether it's at the business level or personal level, it's not easy. So how do you support these people? Yeah. So whatever change people want, and support can mean constant update on what is happening. It could also mean now even material support in the sense that, yes, the salary now is 50%, but can we offer you transport? Can we offer you lunch? What can we do? Can you be able to work from home? What kind of support can we be able to offer you? Yeah. So I believe if you do those, then you'll be able to bring change. And let's not also forget, you as a leader also leading by example. You cannot be telling people there's no money and that they see a new Mercedes Benz in the parking. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So if it's tough times, how you've got to walk the talk, and that means leading by example. Yeah. So I feel those are some of the things that you need to do. As you can see, they are not rocket science. It just calls for the leader to be self-aware and to put other people's needs also into consideration. And if you do that, I believe you'll be a better leader. Yeah.
All right. Change can be hard, so thank you so much for those tips.
Karibu sana.
All right. Thank you for watching. For more tips on how you can empower yourself on leadership skills, please subscribe to this channel. See you next time.